Is our reality a quantum hologram? What if the truth about life after death lies waiting to be discovered in the basement of a haunted house? Are we connected to galactic civilization? I lie awake at night thinking about these things. I never miss an opportunity to ask bigger questions. Hi, I'm Ron James, and this is another special edition of Bigger Questions. I'm here with Rey Hernandez, the founder of F.R.E.E. And Rey, so I don't mess this up, tell us what F.R.E.E. stands for, because it's changed a couple times.
It's the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences, otherwise known as the Dr. Edgar Mitchell F.R.E.E. Foundation.
Now, what you guys are doing is some really groundbreaking work in studying the correlations between different types of experiencers and the common ground that they all find. And this is something that is an emerging understanding in the experiencer phenomenon, and you guys are right at the forefront of it. So I'm really, really happy to have you here to talk about this because I think it's a really important topic.
Well, thank you to yourself and also MUFON TV. It's important to collaborate and work with each other. MUFON's done very important work. Kathleen Martin is the director of MUFON's Experiencer Research team. She's also one of the initial board members of our organization, a member of our research committee. So with the guidance of Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Rudy Shields, a professor of astrophysics from Harvard, Mary Rodwell, another co-founder, and Kathleen, and so many other individuals, I'm very pleased to represent that organization.
There's a lot of people that have these organizations in common, and then also you're doing work with the International Association for Near-Death Studies, which I also do work for as well. And so what we have emerging now is this idea that the mechanisms behind these experiences, be it a near-death experience or be it an alien abduction or a spiritually transformative experience, the mechanisms that make these events possible may be a lot more closely correlated than previously thought. And that's kind of what's emerging from your study. So
yes, correct. Our organization, we are not a ufology organization. We are a 501c3 academic research institute. Approximately half of the members of our board and advisors are PhD academics. We also work very closely with researchers of what we call the contact modalities. These are UFO researchers, near-death experience researchers, out-of-body experiencers, remote viewing, channeling, people that communicate with ghosts and spirits. And we see all of these, what we call contact modalities, which are the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence, as quite possibly coming from one source, of this being one phenomenon. So instead of studying them in a stovepipe fashion, we need to be able to begin to study them as possibly one comprehensive phenomenon that's unified under space-time.
So what you're saying is that the phenomenon that we're talking about actually play a key role in our understanding about the very nature of reality. It's really kind of going in that direction.
Correct. The fundamental concept here is that this all involves consciousness, which is how we as humans interact with the very fabric of our reality, which is essentially a multidimensional reality. And within this multidimensional construct of information fields of our reality, individuals are having experiences, paranormal experiences, diverse paranormal experiences. And what we're saying is that there's a commonality that is shared among these different experiencers. And I just gave an interview with you before shortly. Sure. About more than 20 different commonalities that are shared between NDE experiencers and with UFO contact experiencers. So this research needs to continue and move forward under this new paradigm that consciousness is the primacy, is the key to be able to understand the complexities of the contact phenomenon.
So I had a chance to talk to Dr. Evan Alexander and interview him, and he is a very big proponent of really exploring the correlations between these different phenomena. And what's happening is this awareness across all of these different groups that used to be siloed in their own belief systems are starting to look at not only is there more at play, there's more in common, and it's pointing to a much bigger picture. And so tell us a little bit of the information that you guys were able to glean that kind of takes us down that road.
Let me just add to the initial question that you asked and then your second question. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, since 1974, understood of the interrelationship of the contact modalities. He published a book in 1974 titled From Inner Space to Outer Space, where he talked about the interrelationship of all of these diverse contact modalities. Dr. Allen Hynek mentioned that ufology is basically both a physical and a psychic paranormal phenomenon. Jacques Vallée, which is, in my opinion, the leading authority in the field of ufology, again, 40 years ago, was moving towards the direction of consciousness, and that this phenomenon might be much, much more complex than just extraterrestrial phenomenon. And again, he also argued that we need to study all the contact modalities. Dr. John Alexander, who's one of the presidents, actually, of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, did his PhD on NDEs, researcher with all the remote viewers. He's studied out-of-body experiences. He's gone all over the world to work with shamans. So he's someone that personally knows that all these phenomena are interrelated. He wrote a chapter in our book discussing how we need to be able to study all of this phenomenon in an interrelated format instead of a stovepipe fashion. Rudy Shields, professor of astrophysics at Harvard University, the same thing. He's been writing about this for many, many years. All of the NDE experiencers also. Dr. Kenneth Ring, in 1989, he did a comparative research study of NDE experiencers and UFO abductees. Okay, you mentioned Dr. Eben Alexander, also Dr. Raymond Moody. Okay, we're going to be interviewing him very soon. Again, he says that, look, it's all interrelated, Ray. We need to be able to move in that direction. Okay, and your organization is pioneering that. Also, Dr. Dean Radin, the lead scientist at the Institute for Noetic Sciences. He's publicly stated that we are ahead of ions. Because we're moving into establishing a new paradigm of research, which is incorporating, the consciousness, the psi phenomenon that he's been working on, and the IONS organization with the concept of non-human intelligence. So we're pushing the envelope, he's saying, and he's saying that IONS needs to also move in that direction. So as you were saying, we're getting now a convergence of numerous geniuses, pioneers in this field, and I think including MUFON as well. That's realizing that, look, we need to be able to get outside of the materialist mainstream mindset and start focusing more on consciousness, the multiverse, and the paranormal. That this is the way to be able to begin to get a better understanding of this extremely complex phenomenon.
Let me ask you this. When we look at the possibility that all of these different types of encounters are intertwined and coming from the same source and the same mechanics, a lot of people think, well, that means there's no aliens, or that means there's no angels, or that means that this isn't real, it's just some sort of a phenomenon that's connected to physics and the way space-time works. And help us clarify that, because I don't think that understanding that the phenomena are correlated excludes them having their own basis in their own reality. And where do you draw that line with the new findings that you have and traditional beliefs in that, aliens are aliens and angels are angels and they're different?
This is an extremely complex topic. Dr. Edgar Mitchell told me many times, he says, Ray, we know, this is both for quantum physics or for physics in general and for the paranormal contact modalities. He would say, Ray, we know the equivalent of 1 grain of sand in an entire beach. And so when he first told me that, I said, and that's just one beach, implying one universe, okay? So if we incorporate the multiverse discussion to this, we know absolutely nothing. And that's where we're at right now. We knew almost absolutely nothing. Now we're adding a little bit more pieces of knowledge to it. No one has the answers. From my perspective and from my knowledge and talking to all of these geniuses, we all know that this phenomenon is both physical and psychic and paranormal. It's these two components, and that's what makes it so perplexing because it's a combination of both. People are physically seeing these different types of intelligence. People are physically seeing what is commonly called the UFO, and we prefer the term unidentified aerial phenomenon because it's not just crafts. The vast majority are not just crafts. The vast majority are different types of objects that are seen in the sky, whether it's orbs or different structures that people see out in the sky. So it's both physical and the non-physical aspects. And so we really don't understand, okay, the phenomenon, or have a basic understanding of the complexities of this phenomenon, just like we don't understand the complexities of quantum physics, okay? Space-time, we know that all of the different contact modalities, UFO contact, near-death experiences, out-of-body experience, remote viewing, et cetera, that all of this involves a manipulation of space-time, okay? But we don't understand space-time, okay? And again, I'm not a physicist. I'm just telling you what the PhD physicists in our organization, and also what's circulating in academia. We just don't understand space-time. So we as human beings and our research study, we're just in the infant stages of beginning to understand what questions to ask, let alone what answers.
So when people kind of feel that this new way of looking at this whole situation that's gaining more attention kind of excludes their previous conceptions or their previous belief systems, that's not really what's happening.
No.
We're adding another layer, and like you said, ultimately we really don't have the answers, but what we are seeing is that the nature of reality has everything to do with this. And when we start to get to the point where we realize that maybe we're living in a simulation, that this is possibly a matrix, that even by traditional physics standards, the definition of the universe, the mathematical algorithms that make physical reality work, energy being manifested into the perception of mass, it's a simulation in its most fundamental form. And so it's almost not even debatable anymore. Whether or not we're living in some sort of a simulation that is mechanically and mathematically controlled. And so as we look at these phenomena and we look at the fact that we're living in a reality that literally could be a program, what it tells us is that all of this stuff could be possible. And if you look at the quantum nature of like the double slit experiment, maybe it could be possible and not possible at the same time. And maybe it can be real for one person and not real for another person. And the way we've traditionally dismissed this by saying, well, that person's crazy, might not really be the way we should be looking at this stuff. So it's hugely fascinating how many doors open by just discovering a few little odds and ends and a couple of components of this system.
Correct. In terms of the simulation theory, there are literally hundreds of PhD academics all over the world that are now adherents to one or more different theories of this concept. There's even a Nobel Prize winner in physics that has discussed this. So this is not some crazy theory, okay? Wow. Also the multiverse theory, which is, different from the simulation theory, but sort of like a corollary. Again, Rudy Shields told me, he says, Ray, if you graduate with a PhD in theoretical physics today, you're going to be an adherent to a multiverse theory, okay? There's a lot of theories that are out there. The most common one is string theory that holds that there are 11 or 12 dimensions. So again, these are concepts and topics that physicists understand and know about and that they adhere to. But the normal mainstream population, they're totally clueless about these concepts and these topics. And as you were saying before, that these discussions of simulation theory, we've discussed it internally in our organization. And many individuals in our organization, the scientists and the non-scientists, academics and the non-academics, are pointing in that direction. But even more importantly, within these simulation theories, there is a computer operator, okay, someone who coded this language, okay? So again, that gets to this topic of spirituality, of source, okay? That's what our data is pointing towards. A lot of the experiencers, they've been told by this non-human intelligence about the spirit world. They've been brought to the spirit world. They've been told about reincarnation, okay? And all of these complex, fascinating topics. Our book is littered with documentation of people saying that this intelligence guided me towards this, they showed me this, they brought me to these other realities. So they were brought to the computer creator, so again, we're talking the same language. Even if you look at the focus within a religious context. When we die, we go to heaven. When we die, we go to source, okay? We're going back to the programmer, okay? And then what happens? We get reincarnated, which is the source is reprogramming it to another reality.
Right.
Okay, so there's no difference in terms of the concepts. It's how you describe it. One is describing it through advanced physics and advanced mathematics, and the other one is describing it through a religious tool. What we're saying in our organization is that we have no really solutions to this, scientific answers to this. But we're saying is to keep your options open, keep an open mind. Our reality is not the material reality that you always thought it was. The entanglement theory, quantum physics, documents that. Our reality is not what it is. It's actually much, much more complex. So when you come to the applications now of the contact modalities, of looking at this in a segmented stovepipe fashion, okay? This is all one unified phenomenon. Consciousness is the key and the experiencer of these phenomena to be able to begin to find out what questions to ask, okay, to get a better understanding. And now all of these researchers and scientists, not only in the physics side, but in the contact modality side, are saying, look, this is all one big puzzle. It's all unified. Consciousness is the key, and we need to move in that direction. And I think, the F.R.E.E. organization is clearly pushing that envelope. And now other organizations, the NDE researchers, the MUFON is actually moving in that direction a little bit. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to work more as a team, unified, to be able to address these hardcore, complex questions.
It's really interesting that you start out with something that's considered paranormal and fringe, and then as more and more scientists get involved and start looking at the explanations, they really take us back to the most basic of the most ancient of spiritual teachings, which is that, simulation or not, we're spiritual creatures here to have a physical experience for whatever reason that we choose to do it, or that we're guided to do it. And so it just takes us full circle, and it gets us one step closer to that ever elusive fusion of science and spirit that is the holy grail of human understanding, when our science and our spirituality and our inner knowing all are on the same page. And what the work that F.R.E.E. is doing is groundbreaking, and you've got a lot of really top-end people involved in this, and it's going to go down in history as a seminal organization in evolving the next level of human consciousness. And so I really just want to congratulate you on your work. And tell us about the book that you guys just published and where people can get it.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with that statement in terms of that humanity needs to evolve to this next level of consciousness and integrating us back to source, okay? Because that's where it's all pointing to. Our book is titled Beyond UFOs. Why? Because this is way beyond material UFOs here, much more complicated. Beyond UFOs, the science, and again, this is not metaphysics, this is not pseudoscience, this is science, the science of consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence. Okay, and it's available on Amazon. It's 820 pages. So if you're done reading with it, you can start working as a dumbbell. It weighs 3.5 pounds. Okay, and our next book, we've got 2 new projects. One is a documentary that's going to be have numerous PhD scientists, physicists, astrophysicists, neuroscientists, psychologists, etc., discussing all of these topics that we just mentioned in this interview. So humanity can understand, look, this is very, very complex, and to beginning to educate the audience of the science behind some of this. And also, we're working on a second book. A second book is a 2-volume book with 30 authors. It's going to have 30 chapters. Again, on the question of what is the nature of our reality. It's a hypothetical book that's focusing on, for example, most of these people that are going to be authoring this book, they're all in their 70s, some of them in their 80s. So it's basically, I'm asking them, for example, Dr. John Klima, I said, John, you've been doing this for 40 years. You've been studying the paranormal for more than 40 years as an academic, as a PhD, okay? What the hell is going on, John? Can you be able to explain it? Okay, so it's sort of their hypotheses. Okay, Ray, I'm in the limelight of my life, the twilight, I should say. I don't have too much to go here, but if I were to give you my best explanation of what the hell is going on, this is it. So that's what our second book is going to be about. And the title of that second book is titled Beyond Materialism. Why? Because it's beyond our physical reality. Beyond materialism, the science of consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence. Those are 2 new projects. And if people want to find out more about our organization, we have 2 websites. One is experiencer.org, and the second is titled consciousnessandcontact.org. Consciousnessandcontact.org. And we have close to 100 articles written by our professors and members of our organization. Our data from our research study is there as well. Numerous other links. And then our email is info@experiencer.org. info@experiencer.org.
Let me ask you one last question. You know, I think whoever designed this system that we're in did not intend for us to puzzle our way out. In other words, we're here for a reason and we're supposed to be contained within this system. But what's going to happen when we reach this level of understanding where we get it, that this is all an illusion? And do we collectively just kind of vaporize into a non-physical reality? Do we evolve or burst out of the simulation and find ourselves back at one with our energetic essence?
Well, this gets back into this whole aspect of speculation. If you can imagine, the nearest galaxy closest to us has had 5 billion years of evolution, okay? Dean Radin has demonstrated that precognition exists, okay? You're able to tap into space-time and see aspects of the future. The psi phenomenon is very real, et cetera, et cetera. So imagine a human with these types of abilities of tapping into space-time and drawing information, okay, from the future, from reality, that sort of thing. Now, multiply that by 5 billion years of evolution, which is what the nearest galaxy has had over us, okay? What would be an intelligent species like a human with 5 billion years of evolution with precognition and ESP abilities? It would have the ability where Rey Hernandez is calling down or requesting to see the object that his wife had seen 2 months ago to appear in front of him, commonly called as CE5, or human initiated contact experiences, HICE. 15 minutes later, this huge gigantic UAP appears, you know, almost on top of him. Okay.
So we literally graduate to the level of being like little gods ourselves. We're able to manipulate reality, create reality at our fingertips.
Correct. So from a very simplistic interpretation, I view the intelligence that was dealing with me personally, I consider them like modern angels. Okay, here I am. Hey, I would like to see you. Boom, wherever they are, they appear 15 minutes later. Okay, or Reverend Michael Carter saying, look, I've got this leg that's twice the size of the other. I was just released from the hospital. I'm in so much pain. Please, God, help me. All of a sudden, a being appears, open his hand. A blue orb pops out, goes into his body, okay? He shakes and quivers. He wakes up. His leg is totally healed, okay? I mean, this is what we're talking about. Humans making a petition, okay? And then this new reality appears, okay? So whatever this intelligence is, it's like it's creating a reality, okay? Now, we don't have any answers. We don't know how to explain this, how to guide this. But what I'm telling for everyone is to keep an open mind that these experiences are very, very real. And let me pose a question for your audience members, okay? I now talk to everybody about my experiences and these phenomena. For example, at the airport, there was a Mormon family that was waiting for the same flight to LA, okay? We had a discussion, you know, where are you going, what you're doing? I told them exactly what we're doing. Okay, and I said, and I always ask people these questions. I said, have you ever had a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience? Have ever gone out of body? You know, have you ever seen UFOs, blah, blah, blah? And I told them, maybe you haven't had it, but a member of your family or a friend. I said, I recommend for you to ask your family members and friends. He goes, there's no need to ask. My father had a near-death experience. Okay, I've seen tons of ghosts and spirits. And my wife, she's had multiple out-of-body experiences. I said, you see, case in point, that's an illustration. Now, what I do is I talk to tons of people in the grocery line, in the bank, you know, everywhere. And lo and behold, I hit the jackpot almost every day. Someone has either seen a UFO, had an out-of-body experience, near-death experience. In our church, there's 5, not my church, my wife's church, 5 people have had near-death experiences. Okay? This man who led the Thursday prayer ministry had an NDE. He went to the Monsignor. don't tell this to anybody because the church doesn't believe in near-death experiences, you know? This man that's studying to be a deacon teaches all these advanced religious classes at the church. His wife told me he's having multiple out-of-body experiences. And I go to him, is that true? And shamefully, he looks down and he goes, yeah. Why? Because he also went to the Monsignor. And the Monsignor said, don't talk about out-of-body experiences, okay? So what I'm telling your audience members is that go ask your friends, your relatives, okay? You might not have had someone, but maybe there is a cousin, there's an aunt, there's a parent, there's somebody in your house that has seen ghosts. You know?
What percentage of the general population would you say from your survey work and your own estimation have actually had one of these experiences that falls into these categories?
Well, that needs to be asked in a general survey. We don't know.
We don't know
I
yet.
can only do from my own speculation of talking to people. For example, here's another classic case, right? This was 2 days ago. I had dinner with two friends of mine from Berkeley. One is a full professor now at UCLA. Okay, he was a professor at Harvard, a tenured professor at Harvard. He's my age. Okay, his name is Pedro Noguera, right? So we haven't seen each other in like 15 years or so. Okay, so we were catching up, and we were very close friends. You know, very intelligent, smart man. And his brother was there as well. Okay, he's has a master's in city planning. And so we were catching up, and he was like freaking out, right? Well, yesterday at the UPARS lecture, this guy introduces himself. He says, I'm a family member of Pedro. Well, yeah, right? And then he explained the relationship, this and that. And he said, he's had these experiences. And where Pedro knew about his experiences, so Pedro told him, well, go to that lecture tonight. I can't make it, you know? And I met this guy, and he's telling me, and there's his daughter and another family member that he invited. They have had these experiences too. So you see, maybe Pedro didn't have it, but here's a member of the extended family and his children that had these experiences too. So it's all over the world. But what's the key ingredient here?
People aren't talking about it.
They aren't talking about it. Why? Because you're freaking crazy.
And so that's where organizations like MUFON and organizations like F.R.E.E. actually provide community for people that are dealing with these kinds of things, because it is still a bit of a taboo, but it's becoming more and more mainstream, and more people are having the experiences, and they're all looking for fellowship and understanding. And so by looking at the work that F.R.E.E. is doing, by joining organizations like MUFON, it's a community for people that are experiencing the next step in human evolution.
I've always wanted to do what is called out-of-the-closet videos, okay? Just like the gay community came out of the closet, we need to do out-of-the-closet videos for experiencers to let them know that it's okay for you to talk about these things. You're not crazy. Why? Because when you start talking about it, you realize that other people have had these experiences. It's very common. Our reality is not what it is, okay? And what I think the key ingredient here is that all of our organizations have to continue to push the envelope to establish a new paradigm, okay? Which is not materialist, okay? It's a post-materialist paradigm. To begin to, not that we're gonna know the answers, but begin to make the questions that push us in that post-materialist paradigm.
Asking the right questions and not being previously attached to the answers.
Correct.
Materialist science fails in that regard, in that there is no room for anything that doesn't fit within their box.
Correct.
It's increasingly becoming a model that doesn't work.
Yeah, correct. And advanced science, physicists, they know this. Okay, the physicists know about it. But for example, let me give you another illustration. It's good to discuss things with illustrations. Sure. This morning I was at a Skype call with this woman named Xiao Ma, originally from China. She's now an attorney in Australia, okay? She just opened up a UFO conference in China, and she wants to be able to invite me next year for this, okay? So she was hysterical. She sent me a text message, Ray, I need to talk to you as soon as possible, okay? Because she had a conference this year, and what had happened was this professor of astrophysics in China sent a public letter, and it's got over 1 million hits, okay? Basically destroying her. Here's this lady, she's talking about UFOs, she's talking about the paranormal, she's talking about spirituality and all that stuff. This doesn't exist, you know. Spirituality, what the hell does spirituality have to do with science? UFOs, what the hell UFOs have to do with science? You know, the paranormal, what are you, crazy? Blah, blah, blah. I said, Shama, relax, because she's freaking out, you know, because it's like 1 million hits totally destroying her, you know. I said, don't worry about it, okay? I will get Dr. Rudy Shields. I would get Dr. Claude Swanson. I would get Dr. Bob Davis. I would get Dr. John Climo, you know, et cetera, all of these PhD scientists that are a member of organizations. We could use quotes from Dean Radin. We can use quotes from Edgar Mitchell. Okay, these are all hardcore scientists that are researching this phenomenon. Okay, this guy's a PhD candidate in astrophysics. I'm a PhD candidate too. Okay, I never finished my dissertation. Okay, this guy never finished his dissertation. Well, now we got countering him a PhD astrophysics from Harvard University, the world's leading center for astrophysics, who is the director of our organization. So don't come at me with that junk saying that scientists are not studying this. And here you got your guru mentor from Harvard, from the U.S. telling you, hey kid, you know, chill out, you know, wake up and smell the roses, smell the coffee here, you know. This is very, very real, and I've been leading the charge for this. Okay, so
the politics in China have got to be a little challenging.
Correct. So I mean, we're also working, you know, in this arena as well. And it's a slow evolution. It's a slow evolution because what we're pushing forward, this new paradigm, is extremely complex. It's not simple, as you know. Okay, it's challenging to the physicists, to science, to psychology, parapsychology. Parapsychology is still keeping a distance from what we're doing, even though they're on the fringe. Okay, Dean Radin told me, he says, look, Ray, you know, you talk about UFOs in a parapsychology meeting, you're going to get ostracized. Okay. Even though Jacques Vallée is a member of the Parapsychological Institute, even though he gave a keynote address at the Parapsychological Association, is still a taboo. But it's slowly moving away from that. Same thing with out-of-body experiences. Dr. Bob Davis and I made a presentation at an OBE conference in Miami, the major OBE institute in the world, okay? Again, we were like seen as piranhas, you know? We talked about OBEs and consciousness, that sort of thing, but people did not make the connection, okay? I went to an NDE conference in Orlando, the yearly conference of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Again, talking to people were like, what the hell does UFOs have to do with NDEs? Okay, but yet the leading researchers in the field know about this connection. But the average person at the ground level still has a difficult time. Same thing with ufology. Okay, you talk about these concepts in a ufology group. People still don't make the connections. They don't understand it. Why? Because it was still working under this materialist paradigm for so many years. So we're going to have major obstacles over time, but it's the direction that we need to keep on pushing the envelope.
And there are people that are crossing over. You know, I've interviewed John Alexander 3 times, and I interviewed him just last year in Washington at the IANS conference. And so, you know, he's well known in the UFO community. He's well known in the near-death studies community, been very instrumental in both. And he's really on to these connections, and he's opening a lot of people's eyes. And he's written some very interesting books, including his new one.
And he wrote a chapter in our book.
Yeah.
How we need to research this phenomenon away from a stovepipe fashion. You know?
He's always been a proponent of that.
Correct.
I think it's really
Jacques Vallée too. Jacques Vallée. For many years he's talking about this. So many powerful geniuses. Edgar Mitchell, Jacques Vallée, Dr. John Mack, Dr. Kenneth Ring. Now Raymond Moody and Eben Alexander. I mean, we're talking about, you know, pioneers in these fields. And so now we need to get all these other organizations to join the bandwagon, and MUFON is part of that group as well. So we're establishing a new paradigm, which is not easy.
I think it's happening, and I think that, you know, again, congratulations on founding F.R.E.E. I know it started with a vision from a personal experience, and then you got Dr. Mitchell interested, and Rudy, and it's really turned into something, and you're really getting out there, and you're really putting information out that, you know, people are ready for.
Yeah, I think so, and Mary Rodwell as well. It was the 4 co-founders. It's not easy, because these are not easy concepts, okay? These are extremely difficult concepts to begin to understand. But once you start making the connections, okay, then you're ready to move forward. The people that readily understand it are the experiencers. Why? Because
they lived it. You know, that's what you can say to people, is that one thing that all experiencers have in common is that you are not going to talk them into not believing what happened to them. You know, there's not the self-doubt. You know, a lot of times you can say, well, you know, that's just a false memory, or that's something else. But when these people have these things that they go through, they're unshakable from that point on.
And you're totally transformed.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The fact that they're all telling the same story, you know, like with the NDEs, it all comes down to the love and the spiritual connection that they feel, and they come back with the understanding that really love is the key to everything.
NDEs, what's the most important concept that they return with when they speak to this godly being? Love.
Yeah, so you know, people from all walks of life, all over the world, speak different languages, all telling the same story. Right. It can't be ignored.
This is a spiritual awakening. We're going back to the ancient mystical text, okay? Because they all talked about quantum physics in their own language, okay? But it's all about the multidimensional realities and heading back to source. So that's what we're doing. Edgar Mitchell actually wrote an article, The Merging of Science and Spirituality. It's in our website,
sure,
if you want to read it. And so many of these scientists.
That was my very first Bigger Questions video, was called The Fusion of Science and Spirit. Yes, and back then I interviewed Dean Radin and Amit Goswami and Bill Tiller.
That's where we're heading, my friend, okay? We're heading towards merging science and spirituality. And again, we don't have any answers. Okay, we're totally clueless. Like Edgar said, we know the equivalent of 1 grain of sand in an entire beach. But we need to move in that direction.
I hope personally that the evolution of human understanding means we can all understand that we're profoundly interconnected, and that the actions that we take individually cascade through this reality. And if human civilization is going to survive intact, we all need to wake up. And this kind of stuff is very important towards helping all of us on that journey.
That's one of the primary messages that experiencers have received from non-human intelligence. Also, Edgar actually made a video on that topic, that we need to totally transform and change because we're heading to our path of self-destruction.
Absolutely. Ray, thank you for spending some time with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to MUFON TV. And look forward to returning back in the near future.
We'll do some more stuff. We're working on similar tracks, and I'm sure our paths will cross frequently.
Thank you.
Thanks.